Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Joseph Hammer and I'm an assistant professor of counseling psychology at the University of Kentucky. I'm located in the Department of Educational School and Counseling Psychology, and my office is located in Dickey Hall in the northwest side of campus. I wanted to record a little video so that prospective students who might be interested in working with me could get a sense of what I'm like in person rather than just seeing how I write on the page. So a little bit about me. From Chicagoland, originally did my bachelor's at University of Illinois, master's at University of Missouri, PhD at Iowa State University, my predoctoral internship at University of Maryland's Counseling Center, and my first job as a faculty member in academia is here at the University of Kentucky, and I'm very happy to be here. It's a wonderful school and a wonderful program, and I am really enjoying my new colleagues and the students that I've gotten to interact with so far, both at the master's level and at the PhD level. And my main research interest is, the short way of describing it is help seeking. It's about what helps or stops people from seeking help when they could really use it. And historically, the focus has been on psychological help seeking, so folks with anxiety or depression or other mental health conditions, and their willingness and attitudes towards seeking help from a psychologist or another allied mental health professional. So a lot of my research is centered on that presenting concern and populations that have that presenting concern. But increasingly, particularly being at the University of Kentucky, where there is a wonderful medical school and health-related programs on campus, I'm increasingly going to see my research dipping into other areas, including diabetes and cancer and help seeking related to those conditions. So there's a lot of exciting interprofessional research opportunities that will be coming down the pipeline. So as a part of this research, I like to try and build empirically based theoretical models that figure out what factors are the most important and which are not so important in determining whether or not a given person will seek help for whatever it is that they're struggling with. And what are those factors that really seem to matter? And once we can identify those, then it becomes more sensible to be able to create intervention efforts and prevention efforts and programs and outreach that target those specific factors, because we know which ones are the most important. Then we can build programs and interventions that target those things, and that's a good use of our dollars, and it can help people get the help that they need faster and close what's known as the treatment gap, which is in the United States and a lot of other countries, only about a third, typically, of people who are struggling with a mental health concern at a given time will end up seeking help for that concern, which is pretty intense when you think about it. There's a lot of suffering that's going on that's folks aren't getting alleviated, so there's something that's blocking them, and those things can be logistical barriers, finances, insurance, transportation. They can be psychological. They might have negative attitudes about therapy or fear what might happen if they sit down and talk about their feelings with a therapist. And there can also be contextual factors in that these pieces of our identities, like our racial background, our sexual orientation, our gender, our socioeconomic status, these things can also play a very important role in whether or not we feel comfortable seeking help from different sorts of mental health professionals or physical health professionals. So I seek to try and identify what are the most important factors, and also figure out the causal sequence of how these factors are arrayed. So what sort of factors impact what sort of mediating factors impact, finally at the end, the help-seeking behavior itself. So, for example, there's a theory called the theory of planned behavior, where it posits that your attitudes towards the behavior, so in this case, attitudes towards seeking help, as well as the subjective norms, the social norms that your friends and family and other important people in your life have about therapy. Do they think it's bad, effective, good, not so effective? And then the third variable is their perceived behavioral control, how much control they feel they would have over their ability to perform that behavior. Seeking help, seeking therapy would be feasible, it wouldn't be feasible, etc. So the theory of planned behavior says that those three factors influence help-seeking behavior through the mediator of intention to seek help. So if I have pretty positive attitudes towards seeking help, my friends think seeking help is cool, and I feel like I have the capacity to seek help, that means I'm more likely to form the intention to seek help, to make a plan, and to follow through on that plan to seek help. And that intention, in turn, is a pretty good predictor of people's actual behavior. Do they end up going to see a therapist in the next 3 months or something like that? So we try and build these models that lay out the causal sequence of these variables and put these factors in a sensible causal order, which can also have implications for how and when we try and intervene to benefit people. So that's some background on the help-seeking research that I do, and as you might have noticed in my webpage, I also talk about culturally sensitive or culturally informed research methods and measurement. I really am interested in how we measure these very fuzzy psychological constructs that we try and measure. Like, I've spent some time and published some work on measuring spirituality across cultural groups, particularly with, say, atheists, which in and of itself is, I think, a very interesting concept. Is spirituality, does that look the same across different populations? A very tricky thing to address. And it can be hard to measure constructs well, particularly when you're wanting to compare different groups of people on a given construct, because you have to make sure that that instrument, the items that they're responding to, are understood in a similar way across those multiple groups. Otherwise, it's kind of like comparing apples and oranges. And so figuring out how do we do measurement well, and looking at the applications of that to the help-seeking research that I'm continuing to do, and some of the psychology of non-religion and spirituality research that I've done. So looking at culturally informed methods and measurement and building models that respond to culture and attend to it are personal priorities for me, as well as professional priorities. So yeah, I think that's a little bit about my research side. As far as my clinical side, I take an integrative approach when I work with clients, and I've been in training for the last 8 years in graduate school on internships, so I've been learning a lot for a few years about what good therapy looks like and how to do it. And currently where I'm at, and this is, being a good therapist is a lifelong journey, so I'm going to continue to grow, but where I'm at currently is I take an integrative approach that at the theoretical level integrates primarily acceptance and commitment therapy with Greenberg's emotion-focused therapy, as well as components of the traditional Beck cognitive behavioral therapy approach. And I have arrived at a place where I feel like the integrated approach gives me an ability to respond flexibly to the different clients that I might be working with, because I find that sometimes ACT, acceptance commitment therapy, is really helpful for some folks, like who are dealing with anxiety, whereas with some other folks who are maybe dealing with grief that's complicated and they're feeling stuck, a lot of times the emotion-focused aspects that I learned from Greenberg's work are really helpful with helping people move through that. So I've found an approach that is a pretty good fit for how I see the world, and that means I can do better therapy and help people understand what might be going wrong for them, and how in our work in therapy I can help them move through it towards better health. So that's a little bit about me clinically. And one of my favorite things, I think I like this even more than providing therapy directly, is training students, undergraduate, graduate students, in how to do good therapy, because it's such an interesting and very, very personal experience to learn how to do therapy well, and it requires a lot of self-exploration that can be really hard and difficult and super rewarding. And as I mentioned in what I wrote on the website, the things that I've learned about doing good therapy have required me to really examine myself and become aware of some things I might not have been as aware of before, in terms of how I handle my thoughts, how I deal with my difficult emotions, how I tend to make people feel when I interact with them in certain ways, and about my own cultural identities, being a white male, and how that impacts how I see the world, how I do work with clients, and yeah, these cultural identities of mine and the privilege that comes with them and the power that I've been able to enjoy given these identity statuses, it has played a huge role in my life and continues to, and it's, I think, really important for me to increasingly become more aware of how that operates, because I can do better work with clients when I'm aware of how these power dynamics might be playing out in the room with a client, whether it's someone who shares some of my identities or is very much different from me. So I love training students in this process and helping them through this personal, professional, political journey. I think it's all of those things. As far as how I work with mentees who are helping me out with the help-seeking research that I'm doing, I've had the opportunity to work with both undergraduate and graduate students around the research process, and it's been very helpful because this is not something you learn. Mentoring and collaborating is not something you learn how to do in class that much. It's really something that you learn as an apprentice by learning from your older mentors and the folks who guide you. And I have really benefited from great mentoring from people in my life over the course of my 8 years in graduate school prior to this, and I really like paying that forward. It feels really good. I know how much I appreciated great mentoring, and I really aspire to give that back to the next generation and to work very closely with my mentees and my advisees, because I really want to see them succeed and be able to enjoy success that I've been really privileged to be able to have experienced. So I say a little bit more about my mentoring style and how I try and strike a balance of challenging you and pushing you very gently to step outside your comfort zone and grow in the ways that are important to grow, while also providing you the support that you're going to need, because graduate school is stressful. It's a wonderful and stressful journey, and it's really helpful to have a mentor and a major professor who is in your corner, who's your advocate, and who will help normalize the difficult things for you, provide support, go to bat for you, and advocate for you when that's necessary. It can be a really nice mix where your mentor provides the challenge that you need and the support that you need, and can give you space and autonomy and empower you to do some work on your own, but is very much available to you when you need advice and you need to connect and you need clarification, because it is no fun trying to figure out how to do this darn statistical analysis and you're trying it this way and that way. It can be so frustrating and inefficient, and it's so much better when you can sit down with your major professor and be like, Dr. Hammer, I just don't know what to do here. Can you walk me through this? That sort of interdependentness where you as an advisee have and practice some autonomy, and we work together and as a team, and I guide and help you as needed. It can be a really nice symbiosis. So I think those are some of the key parts about me professionally. Personally, I see books. I like to read a lot because I'm a nerd, and like to go on walks around my nice leafy neighborhood here in the Bluegrass. And I bike to work every day, which is awesome. And I like to eat things, tasty things, so I enjoy cooking with my partner and just spending time with good people, having them over for dinner, going out for coffee, catching up, talking about the big existential things in life. Those are some of the things that really keep me going, really give me meaning, and offer a nice work-life balance from all the craziness and work that can come with being a professor on the tenure track, where you're expected to do great teaching, great training, publish a lot, get grants, and provide service at various levels. So yeah, I think that feels about right. I hope this little snippet has helped you get a better sense for who I am as a person and a professional. And if you share some of my interest in help-seeking research, and you're a current undergraduate student or master's student who's interested in coming to a counseling psychology master's program or a counseling psychology PhD program that has a very strong emphasis on social justice and really excellent clinical and research training, I highly recommend that you consider applying to our counseling psych programs, whichever one you think is a better fit. Because maybe we'd get to work together, and that would be cool. So if you anticipate applying for the PhD program and you're interested in my research in particular and would like me to be your what's called a major professor, where I would be your primary mentor, especially around the research and professional development, I encourage you to send me an email with some key information about yourself, to introduce yourself. You don't have to, but it's kind of nice for me because I can get a better sense of you beyond what you might say in your statement of purpose and what you might list in your CV. And I provide some additional information about what to write about in the website. But please don't be intimidated by that, because it sounds like, oh, I gotta be really impressive and use big words and sound really smart and stuff. But the thing is, there are so many components that go into a potentially great doctoral advisee. And what's important is putting yourself out there, saying a little about yourself, throwing out some ideas, and just kind of being yourself, letting it be. Because in the end, what we always tell applicants is that it's about fit. So do you fit well in the program? Do you feel a sense of comfort and alignment of values with the people that you meet there? And so in the end, it's really all about fit. So if you're interested in working with me, please reach out to me. And even if you don't do that in advance, just mention in your statement of purpose that you'd be potentially interested in working with Dr. Hammer, and tell me a little bit about why and your interests and stuff. So, yeah, I hope this was helpful. And if you're applying for graduate school this fall, I wish you the best of luck. It was a wonderful and crazy and rewarding experience for me, both my master's and my PhD work and applying for those, and definitely empathize with the stress, but it tends to all work out somehow.